Previous service chiefs diverted money to build universities in their various communities. Those are the kind of resources that should have been used to procure modern technology, because under the supervision and oversight of this National Assembly. And to think that money was being diverted to non-essentials. And as we speak, those institutions are not teaching anything about security. They are just another glorified university. I think that this House, having the power to appropriate, we should focus strictly on the items that the Army and the Air Force and other security agencies are going to spend the money to do. Otherwise, everybody knows we need modern technology. This House, under your leadership, we have provided supplementary appropriation to the armed forces. Throwing money at a problem will solve it. We must assist them to redirect their procurement policies to focus on this technology. Otherwise, we can decline to approve appropriation if the details are not such that those managing the system will use the money strictly in a manner that we do justice to our collective feeling about redirecting and moving more and more towards technology. This is my additional prayer, Mr. President. It can be
that previous service chiefs diverted money to build universities. Did they build personal universities or public universities?
Mr. President, they build public universities used to strengthen NDA in terms of competence of the men, and the rest used to procure modern technology for the armed forces. The armed forces would have been far more competent. Somebody talk about how Israel reacted. I'm not sure it's something I want to debate, but they reacted with technology, with men and women well-trained, not creating mushroom educational institutions. Each service chief, they started them in their own villages. That did not coincide with the priorities of the armed forces. Just last year when we were doing the supplementary budget, we saw that the Navy even appropriated money to buy a yacht. That is why the oversight responsibility of this Senate is extremely important, to prevent the armed forces to prioritize in a manner that coincides with what we think the Nigerian Army should be doing. Thank you, sir.
Senator Kao wants you to reiterate the prayer that you are seconding. What is the prayer?
The prayer that the money should be directed to the core values, to the core mandates, which is to protection and procurement of materials and instruments that will aid them in securing our country rather than building universities or procuring yachts.
Okay. Proposed by distinguished Senator Oshiomole is to the effect that we should mandate our Senate committees on defense, Navy, Air Force, Army, and other related security agencies to oversight all appropriations to the armed forces to avoid diversion of such monies from procurements of necessary tools to fight insurgents into unnecessary construction of universities in various domains of the armed forces chiefs. This prayer has been seconded. Those in support of the prayer say aye. Those against say nay. Let me take it again. The prayer is that all the Senate committees on defense, Navy, Air Force, and Army should immediately oversight and monitor that all appropriations made by this hallowed chamber are not diverted by the service chiefs to construction of universities in their communities, as happened in the past, but rather injected into the purchase of weaponry and technological equipment meant to fight insurgencies. This prayer has been seconded. Those in support of this additional prayer, say aye. And those against say nay. Okay. The nays have it. Yes, so it's Ashim.
Additional prayer, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Senator Victor Ume. I represent Anambra Central Senatorial District. Mr. President, I rise to say that we can deploy soldiers, we can deploy technology, we can do all these things, but if we cannot train the mind, these things will continue to happen. Suicide bombing can only be perpetrated by a mind that is not developed. When I listened to Senator Alain Dume, he said that one of the purveyors of the bomb was asked why she was doing this, and she said that she was told that she would go to heaven. A trained mind will ask the person sending her on the mission, why are you not carrying out this mission so that you go to heaven? I therefore think that instead of thinking about how to use technology and the soldiers to fight terrorists, we should deploy education. If we educate young people, we'll be in a position to keep them out of some of these things that embarrass us. In my condolence message to the people of Borno State, in our platform, Senator's platform, I called for reorientation of our youths by our religious leaders. Young girls that were hired to go and commit this act with a promise that they will go to heaven. If they were educated, they will not embark on that mission. This Borno State we are talking about have so many educated people. I do not want to accept that educating our young people in that belt will be difficult. I understand that Boko Haram is no to Western education. That's the name, the meaning of Boko Haram. But that area has produced so many brilliant minds, senior advocates of Nigeria. Even Senator Tahir Mongono here is a brilliant legal mind, and he hails from that state. The government should do the right thing. If we invest on education, the governor should take education as a priority so that no matter how difficult it is to impact education on our young people, they should go all the hog to ensure that education is provided to our young people coming up so that this thing can be turned from having minds that are liberated through superstition, because nobody can believe this, that when you kill another person, you go to see God. So I am saying that even at the prayers in the motion I have looked at, yes, we are talking about fighting those who will go, mobilizing people who will go and get people and stop this. These are young girls, teenagers have been brainwashed to go and carry bomb and embrace people and kill people and go to heaven. So this is the root of the problem. We have to ensure that the government is directed and urged to go and provide education to our young people. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Distinguished Senator Ekong.
Me to extend my condolences to the families of those who died through the heinous act committed by suicide bombers that detonated bombs in several places in Goza area of Borno State. Mr. President, this is a desperate action by terrorists who do not mean well for our country. The fact is this. The fact is that they are so desperate, and it clearly shows that they've been defeated, because They no longer have the capacity to use weapons to fight our military. So they now decided to use suicide bombers to kill and maim our people. This is sad. This is very sad. I want to commend our men in uniform, men and women in uniform who have been doing very well to protect us. It shows that the work they are doing is yielding results because they feel, the terrorists, that they can no longer fight them. And that's why they've resorted to these acts of using suicide bombers. What I want to add here is that we call on them not to rest on their oars. We call on them to put more grease onto their elbows, to continue to fight until these people can no longer even use the suicide bombers. I also want to call on Mr. President to continue what he's doing. I know what he's doing. I know he's meeting every day, he's working, having sleepless night to show that, to make sure that this country becomes safe from terrorists and bandits. And it clearly, what happened in Woza last week demonstrates that the entire thing that has been done by Mr. President and his team is losing result because these people feel that they can no longer fight using weapons. So what we need to do is to find a way to make sure that they cannot use the suicide bombers any longer, using devices that can detect those that have been are ready to kill themselves in order to kill others, to detect them so that they can no longer use suicide bombers to kill and maim our people. I commend Senator Ndime for bringing forward this motion, and I also commend all those who contributed in this in the debate in this motion. Thank you, Mr. President.
Well, I don't know whether the
Your Excellency, the President of the Senate, my distinguished colleagues, some of the things that we have said here, Mr. President, are for purposes of emphasis. And when critical matters like this come, we have one thing to say or the other. And sometimes we say, without sounding like a broken record, we want to make certain contributions. So, Mr. President, actually, I've been meaning to make a contribution on this matter because it's a security matter. And if you note where I come from, we have had issues of security challenges and the death of people. And Mr. President, my concern here is the fact that everything that we keep talking about security here is in reaction to attacks on communities. It's in reaction to death of people. Mr. President, I think we must change the narrative and the trajectory from which we approach the issue of security. Let me therefore extend my very heartfelt condolences to the people of Borno State, and in particular, the people of Goza. Those of us who have followed the insecurity situation in the Northeast, particularly in Borno State, know that Goza has been at the receiving end of attacks by Boko Haram insurgents. And so, Mr. President, if we have been talking about insecurity, government out, government in, week out, week in, month in, month out, year in, year out, and we are still confronted with the menace of frequent attacks on our communities and the killing of vulnerable, defenseless civilians, then, Mr. President, we want to ask ourselves the salient questions and then appeal to government to take the bull by the horn and be the government that will solve the problem of insecurity in Nigeria. Mr. President, I don't want to believe that our military that have been drafted into this war do not know what to do. Be it a symmetric war or a conventional war, they are all mere semantics. The fact is that it's a war. And soldiers are trained to fight wars, whether it is asymmetric or conventional. And I don't want to think that appealing to the soldiers to deploy technology is the answer to the question, because they are trained to identify wars and to deploy appropriate mechanisms to solving the problems of war. And so, Mr. President, I think we want to challenge the Nigerian military. We cannot continue talking about insecurity, particularly the Northeast, particularly Goza, like I said, that has had a receiving end of this insurgency. So let's think that for once, we make a very passionate appeal to this government. Let this government be the government that will end insecurity in Nigeria. I still submit, Mr. President.
To the district. Mr. President, I join my colleagues who spoke earlier to condole and commiserate with our brother, colleague, and friend, Senator Mohamed Alin Dume, his senatorial district, and government and the people of Borno State. Mr. President, I want to refer particularly to the last prayer, the third prayer. The third prayer is about the deployment of technology. But before then, one question we should ask ourselves as a parliament: is there anything that is worthy of significant investments by the Nigerian government today, other than the security of the people of Nigeria? Is there? There isn't, is the question. Because any other thing that we wish for ourselves, that we hope and pray for our country, revolves around the security of the people and their property. I will therefore urge us and the executive arm of government to reprioritize how we invest. Mr. President, I support construction of roads. But today, what Nigeria needs is to secure their lives. So we should take it as a priority that when we appropriate, henceforth, real investment must be made in the armed forces and other security agencies. Mr. President, last month, I attended an exhibition of new technologies for defense across the world in Paris. And today, the drones, particularly, can be sufficiently and significantly utilized to help our armed forces fight not only in the Northeast against the insurgents, but also the banditry in the Northwest, North Central, and other criminal tendencies in the southern part of the country. So I believe that we should prioritize providing funds for our armed forces to have the right kind of technology that they need. I will also really commend the armed forces that we have, because they still try to do much with the little that they get from us. But I believe the time has come that we look at spending more to secure our people than providing maybe for roads and some other investments that can easily be positively really influenced by providing security in the country. Thank you very much, Mr. President, for the privilege.
And my very distinguished colleagues, it's a sad day, and it's a period of moment of reflection, because we are talking about insecurity. If I had my way, I would have suggested that all proceedings be suspended today in honor of the innocent Nigerians that were killed by these incredible acts of embarrassment caused in Borno. As a matter of fact, Mr. Senate President, just recalling Thomas Hobbes here, is looking day and day that life of man is short, brutal, and terribly embarrassing if the Leviathan refuses to respond to the insecurity going on day by day, particularly in Nigeria. And this can be very, very dangerous. Living with insecurity is gradually becoming the only way to understand security. And we cannot allow this trend to continue because of the danger that is portrayed. I don't want to take much of your time, but I will say clearly, it costs nothing for the intelligent army to get devices in their phone to know where these notorious criminals live. As I'm here, I check my phone regularly, and I know the number of guns that are very close to me here. This is just less than 1,000 installation. Within us now, there are over 277 guns around here, just because Anamori is close to this place. So what am I saying? We can use technology, just like distinguished Senator Odume have said, to deploy to these soldiers, rather using hands and all this unknown strategy.
Prof,
Yes, sir.
You know you have a PhD in warfare.
Yes.
Do you know the
half of them have gone is one, and that is dangerous. And we need to find out the source of those guns. But because I can locate that armory close to us, I'm very close to Villa, then I understand we are safe. I want to say very clearly that the military should stop using unconventional strategy to fight insurgency in Nigeria. There's a distinction between conventional strategy and unconventional strategy. We need to go to unconventional strategy to fight unconventional war. Boko Haram is unconventional war. It's not a conventional war. We're all aware of what happened in Kenya. We cannot close our eyes. We need to wake up. So I finally suggest to you, Mr. Senate President, and my distinguished colleagues, that this Senate, under your leadership, sir, must have a closed-door meeting for one day, and let's use that the whole day to discuss security matters. Our life is very important. The life of man cannot be said to be short, brutish, and unproductive if we do nothing about insecurity. Living with insecurity cannot be the only way to understand security. We shouldn't get to that. Once again, distinguished Senate President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, I thank you. Like I said, to me, it's a sad day. I don't think we can eat. We could actually close proceedings today in honor of those people. How can you be going for a wedding and you don't even know what happened? Somebody just put bomb and attacked the whole convoy, and people have started dying. It's sad, it's painful, it's uncalled for, it's unacceptable, and it's rejected in the totality of its formulation. Eliminate. Thank you, Mr. Senate President.
My distinguished colleagues, I'm Abdulaziz Musa Radwa, representing the people of Katsina Central. I want to align myself with all those that spoke on this motion and to also condole our brother, distinguished Senator Ndume, for this unfortunate incident. Mr. President, I want to also align myself with the issue of technology and the need for us to prioritize security. It is very important to understand that the armed forces and the security agencies are doing their best, and we must commend them for what they are doing. However, it's important for us as a parliament, as mentioned by distinguished Senate President Emeritus, on the need to see how we can ensure that we provide all that is required for the armed forces and the security agencies to enable them fight this battle. What is important now is for the security agencies to go back to their security procedures so that this issue of suicide bombing does not spread, especially to the Northwest. Because if the bandits in the Northwest now adopt this strategy, it is going to be more dangerous. As I'm talking to you, Mr. President, a lecturer was killed yesterday at the Federal University, Dusama. His children and others within the vicinity, about 5 or 6 of them have been abducted and are with these bandits. So it is important that the armed forces and the security agencies go back to the security procedures that have assisted in nipping in the bud the suicide bombing that has been consigned to the dustbin before. So I want to thank you, Mr. President, for this opportunity and distinguished colleagues.
I believe that with this display of solidarity, if the Nigerian Army is provided with the necessary tools and equipment, and I must also mention here, this time around, the Nigerian Army and other security forces responded promptly and gallantly. In fact, one soldier lost his life and a civilian JTF when they confronted the 5th suicide bomber that detonated the bomb and killed the 3 of them there. One was a soldier. And mostly, Mr. President and distinguished colleagues, that soldier that sacrificed his life was from the South. It is very, I have to mention this because that is the greatest sacrifice one can make. And in fact, that was what led to getting that incident immediately to an end, because they succeeded in arresting one of, or the last suicide bomber. She's now under interrogation. I must mention here again that these people are already, indoctrinated. All of them their hairs were braided, and they had this Nelly, and they are confident that they were going to heaven if they detonate and kill the people. In fact, the last woman that was arrested, up to now, the interrogation has not brought out so much because she's still insisting that she wants to go to heaven, and that is by killing people and detonating the bomb. So, Mr. President, as I said, the black spots are 3. What needs to be done can be achieved if the Nigerian Army are given specific instruction and attention and provided with what they need, particularly drones and other technologically driven gadgets, in order to get rid of these 3 black spots. Once again, thank you for giving me this opportunity, and once also thank my distinguished colleagues for the support, sympathy that I have been pouring in since the incident happened. I so move.